Yeah, till 4 o'clock. Okay. So we are going to we're going to continue till 4 o'clock, guys. So if you do need to disappear, we understand. But let's get some value out of our panel. If you have got questions, let me know. But I'll start. I've made loads of notes of ones I want to look at. The question, which is the most difficult. All right. So so I think George said CRE, corporate real estate, is a dinosaur. Yes. Hey! Have my seat. So George said that CRE is a dinosaur, and Peter earlier on was talked about how architecture is quite slow moving compared to technology. So how do we ensure that our workplace designs aren't out of date by the time we occupy them? But maybe Peter starts. Or George, anyway.
Well, look, I think if coming back to what I said before, if something is based not on a set of furniture or function, but set on a base of identity of a company, I think you have a pretty good start. At the end, we're always going to sit on a chair, or somehow we're going to have some horizontal surfaces to work. So it's not about armchair versus desk or something like that. It's more about a cultural change within the company, which needs to be translated into space. Now, if you do that translation in a way that, without losing the idea of what you're doing and why you're doing it there, at the same time provides you a tool set which you can rearrange quite easily, always depending on your structure. I mean, there's obviously a difference between a department organization versus a matrix organization, for example, requires a different kind of approach. But if you have that, I think you're pretty much there. Yeah. And if you think of elements which, as I said, are not difficult to change, not everything needs to be changed at once, but if they are easy to change within a day or two without creating a construction site, I think then architecture, not only from the practicability point of view, but the interior actually is able to encourage people for change, because they might experience that change is enjoyable and productive, and they can grow in that. And I think that's something architecture certainly can do.
Great.
It might not solve a lot of other things, but that is something we can do.
George, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so this is a long discussion when we get to CRE as a dinosaur. But we can start off coming from where I come from, which was, if you think about retail. Retail used to be selling in a shop, but retail became multi-channeling, omni-channeling. CRE, it still hasn't changed. And a lot of people who are in CRE, in our findings, are really old men who are not wanting to change their ways. There's a lot of discussion about building, but not so much discussion about rebuilding or reusing, especially in London. London's just building, but there's so many buildings that are there that are not being used. So the whole process, and there's so much data in the book, is really explaining the fact that it's the last bastion that will start to move into the new market, the new marketplace. So that's what it's about. And it's not just UK, it was all over the place. Yeah. You go through, the guys from Holland we're talking about, even the guys in Bulgaria, the guys in Iran we're talking about as well. It's the same discussion going on all over the place. They haven't moved outside their boundaries. Yeah. They don't want to talk upstream, and they don't want to talk downstream.
I was going to say budget cycles. Is it on? There we go.
Nope.
It's probably on. Sure.
It's on. There we go. Budget cycles and lease terms. As long as, like specifically in the US, we have 10-year leases. And so if you've got a 10-year lease and you only budget once for that building, then you don't want to get it wrong. People tend to err on the conservative side, and so it's outdated before you even move in. So we need to think about different lease terms and different budget cycles.
And Gerda, now you work for Cushman and Wakefield, as we know, property agents and so on.
I'm in the mail oriented field of expertise, so I'm on thin ice. I think that, so the CRE industry is outdated and is slow. However, I think that that doesn't have to remain the same. If you have diverse people that fulfill those functions, like you have an anthropologist, or you take a sociologist or a psychologist or whoever, and you can change the role itself, the industry will change with it. You might want to change the term then, because the CRE term has such a yeah.
Change the
But the
term.
thing is-
What do we call it? Oh, no.
But the thing is it's a reluctance to change as well. You know, if you wanted to buy 500 square metres for a week, where can you do that? You can't do that unless you subcontract or subcontract and
sublet,
subcontract.
yeah.
So the whole methodology of what's going on is dinosaur. The whole. So we have to think about a new way of working with.
Yeah.
And again, it's not about building, and it's going back to what Peter. I mean, it's about the space, and you know, space is another discussion as well.
Jen,
Yeah.
did you want to come?
Yeah, so I understand the question. It's about making sure that we're building for the future and it doesn't become a dinosaur by the time we move in. And I think that really, we've all talked about that in various different guises, in the sense that the workspace needs to be connected to the company and the company culture, and as a result, the company's vision. So if your vision for the organization is in a short-term arena, in one of those, in the shorter-term time horizons, then that's where your workplace is going to be, because obviously that's as far as you're looking at for your organization. Whereas if you're looking further down the road, and hence are trying to build that organization, then the workplace needs to reflect what that is.
Yeah. And I like Peter's comment during your presentation. You were saying if you design the space for the culture and the vision and the brand, that's kind of a bit stickier than the kind of furniture in the space.
I mean, look, it's always nice to make a comparison to people. You know, when we design spaces, we say, you know, you want to meet interesting characters, because at a party you want to maintain good conversations. Now, if you do that in workspace, I'd say, if you're interesting, it's not important whether you're in fashion or not. You know, because you still maintain your interest, and I think that's what it's about. You create spaces which have a character, which keep you engaged in the way how you want to do business, how you want to have a relationship to the people who work with and for you. And I think that's the much more important thing. And there we need to be humble from the building industry. Right. You know, again, that is much more important than being always up to date, because we all know experiences where we love that kind of slightly outdated situation, but it has a lot of character.
Yeah, like character,
you know?
yeah.
And so it's about character at the end. That's most important.
I'm going to follow up with Jennifer, actually, and Muriel, if you want to come in on this, because I think everyone mentioned it, but you two definitely mentioned the importance of leadership, setting the vision and so on. But my experience in the UK is no one went to university saying they wanted to be a manager or a leader. They wanted to be the king of their profession, whatever that is, psychology, technology. And then they get to a certain point in their organisation and they're like, oh, you're really good at that. Can you go and lead those people and manage that team over there? So what are we? Why would they know any better, the leadership management, when they're almost they've kind of adopted this role, not necessarily volunteered themselves?
At the end of the day, I don't think that happens as often as it used to, in the sense of very few people stick within an organization for 10, 20 years. I do know a few people, but it's not as common. A lot of people change jobs every 3 to 5 years. And with that, people are looking for different things. They're, you know, yes, they sometimes fall into, shall we say, into a leadership role or a management role. But when they fall into that role, then it's about saying, okay, what is that all about? How am I going to do that? I mean, when I got into the space, I was a professional actress and dancer, for goodness sake. I was just a PA, you know, just earning some money. And then they asked me to design a training course. I'd never done that before in my life. but I needed to go and do that. So then I went and did the research to figure out what does that mean and what does that look like, and a whole new career was
You'd use
born.
AI today, wouldn't
So, no, I didn't have AI then. Google was very young.
Muriel,
Yeah.
I might be, it's a facetious question, I get it, but I'm just thinking, it's like, the leadership, we need to talk to the leadership, they know what the occupants want. Sometimes the leadership of middle-aged, fat, white men that haven't got a clue what their people working for them want, and yet we still talk to them about the requirements.
I also have no idea if you tell me you will have an operation on your heart. I don't have a conversation with the surgeon around. It will be side or in the other side. Are you operating back forward or inside out? Or you doing so? We need to have a professional conversation with the leadership as well. It's not because they are leader; they are the one who knows better about or change management process or the project design, etc. So I think that at some point we as designers need to empower ourselves in terms of I know my profession and you know yours. And I think that this is something we as a designer, as an architect, we need to grow upon and be able to really make a case about our knowledge and our understanding of what the role is. On another hand, we are trying this leader that maybe it's a leader of human resources team or people's team in a bank company having a very deep conversation with us about empowerment of the space, about reoccupation, about proportion of the space, about color, about bunch of stuff maybe they don't need to know, or we need to learn to ask questions better. But I do think I would like to highlight that companies are growing the space of having much more professional people working in the real estate industry. I do think that this has changed a lot over the last years, both in technological realm. So we have a lot of companies already using technology to understand the occupancy, future lease event, how the occupancy of the space is growing, especially for larger companies. And for instance, financial institutions are doing a fantastic job in this kind of stuff. And I do also think that all the type of real estate solutions, such as flexible company, WeWork space, co-working spaces, are doing very interesting challenge to the real estate when you have Barclays with half of their portfolio already in the co-working space.
Yeah. 30 years ago, I did a post-occupancy evaluation of a large engineering company, and I thought the design was a bit strange. And I asked them who came up with the colour scheme and the branding, and they said it was the chairman's wife. But, right, more questions. One more from me, and then we'll go to the audience. Kay, a mantra I use is design for the range, not the average. I think that's really important. And Muriel, I loved your ecosystem of stakeholders. So how do we identify all the different stakeholders and then design for their requirements in the open plan space?
I think you have to take the worst case scenario and assume that you have a whole variety of individuals in that space, because you could at any given time. And even if on day one you don't, doesn't mean that you're not going to hire somebody tomorrow that isn't. So we basically say that what we need to do is create options and choices and empower people with some kind of control. So if you have those 6 modalities, you're looking at all those things, you create hyper and hypo versions, and then you ensure that everybody has access to those, you'll probably get about 80% there. And the other 80% is really understanding that you need to still then allow for individual adjustments and individual accommodations.
Yeah. But it should also be universal design. We shouldn't have to distinguish between groups.
The 7 principles of universal design are what we tell everybody. You start with that, and then you build from there.
Anything to add, Muriel?
And spend time on briefing. I think that the crazy situation when we receive a project and the project manager says, you know what, you need to develop this project in 5 months, and for the engagement, don't you worry, you have 2 weeks to do this. So we need to really spend time and get to know the company, get to understand the stakeholders, get into framing the future, and produce according to this.
Gerda?
Yeah, I think I fully agree, of course, with what you're all saying. I think that a missed opportunity, though, and in line with earlier questions, is we tend to only talk to the organization that we find at the moment that we start a project. Instead of that, we're speaking to clients that come into the space regularly, but even more impactful is either talent that comes in or the diverse groups that you don't have in your organization, and to try to understand. And George, that's something that I really appreciated from your presentation, is having all those different stakeholders. And this is like a once in the 10-year cycle opportunity for you to reach out of your comfort zone and to have all these groups present to have a conversation with. And I'm positive that a lot of them will be happy to contribute.
Right. George, anything to add? You look like you've been eager to say something.
I was going to say something about the leadership, but I won't do that. It was a promoted incompetence. No, so that, I agree with you. The investment at the beginning of the project is the biggest investment. Now, let me explain. When we did the future of IKEA in Germany for 10 years ahead, we had customers and non-customers. Now, there's not many non-customers from IKEA, but we had non-customers there. We had students, we had people with diverse points of view. We had the town planner from Buenos Aires in the room as well. Mm. And he doesn't know who, he could spell IKEA, but it was really the discussion of, you know, that flexibility. We talk about design for flexibility. We talk about flexibility and design for the future. But what you're wanting to get is what's happening just now and understanding the unknown. And when you start to work through trying to think about the unknown, you get these different points of view. And then you've got your long-term plan, you've got your medium-term plan and your short-term plan. But getting all that to come through from that base and not do it at 12:05 once the building's made or you've actually made the site, because that's the wrong time. Yeah. Take that time.
Is there any questions from the audience? Down the front. And I'm going to ask for very short answers, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe a question for you, George. All of what we talked today, I suppose it mostly applies to service-based businesses. What about manufacturing? Also, IKEA being a manufacturing company and having companies also here present at this conference doing manufacturing. How does this all apply to those? The principles are the same, or?
The principles are the same, ultimately, because it's really asking the questions, getting the people around, from what I was doing, is getting questions and then trying to create these scenarios of the future. So, I mean, it's, you know, what-if scenarios and getting through to that. So the principles are really the same.
Yeah. I always say that, you know, if you do design briefing well, you do change management well, you will end up with a different solution. But it's the same process, but it should be a unique solution to the organisation. But you can adopt the same process, whether it's manufacturing, IT company, law firm, whatever.
The thing is with manufacturing is the supply chain perspective of manufacturing is sometimes a little bit more complicated than something else. And retailing is a different, so it's different complexities, but it's the same goddamn process.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'd like to add to that. I have been working on a couple of manufacturing projects recently. And I think that a really important lesson learned is that you include everyone in the warehouse and everything that you do. Yeah. Because if you don't, that is a massive impact on how they feel and how they feel contributed in the process. But for the rest, the process is very similar. And it is the field that I think has the most potential impact for the S in ESG to make really a difference, and a lot of innovative concepts are coming from these manufacturing companies we've been working with.
And involve maintenance and the janitor, because they know how things work. Because most people say they know things, but they don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge this. I don't think it is the same, because you've got a lot of people that are stuck in a single process and they can't move and they don't have options and choices. They are assigned to a spot and that's what they need to do. So what we're doing with a lot of our manufacturing clients is really focusing in, kind of like on call centers, where you're tied to a spot, really thinking about how do we create more options and choices for you outside of that. So for instance, amenities and services and things like that, that traditionally in those kind of spaces, have not been addressed really well, quite frankly. They've been ignored. You go to your desk, you go to your station, you do what you need to do, that's it. And in the last 5 or 6 years, that has changed significantly because we realize that the health and the well-being, the mental health, the breaks of those individuals is really important. And the churn in those organizations is incredibly high because the burnout rate is incredibly high. So we need to do a better job of creating those types of spaces that provide amenities and services for them so they
But
have
Faye,
that
we're
relief.
still saying, the process is the same. It's not the outcome, and the stakeholders are different, and the process. But yeah, do you understand what I'm saying? We're not saying you've got to talk to the right people and engage. But
I think you need to acknowledge that there's a fundamental difference between that and office.
different work processes, different people, different ways of doing things. Yeah, but there's a process that we go through.
The thing is what I'm saying is different, is that most companies in the manufacturing think about the manufacturing process inside the plant.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing is actually bringing in different manufacturers, competitors into the meeting, sub-suppliers, transport guys, because somebody could say, we could do that over here for half the price. The same with the call centres. In fact, I would like to kill call centres because it could be done in different ways. I don't think it's humanistic. But you're right, there are specific things for manufacturing, and there's specific things for retailing, specific things for knowledge workers, and specific things. But the challenge is really to get that discussion in place and get these diverse, multi-dimensional, that's not a yes-no answer, it's the grey answers that we want to get to understand those things, to build it together.
So it's 4 o'clock. We just have, no, it's 4 o'clock. It's a hard finish. We're already 20 minutes late, but we're going to finish with one last thing before I bring Alenka back up. So people in the audience here, they've got a project coming up. It may be a refurbishment, may be a new building. What's the one tweet word length of advice?
I think it's the final question.
Oh, no. Is it online?
Yeah, we have an online
okay.
question, so if maybe just this one more.
Go on then.
So from United States, I'm a facilities workplace planner in a hospital in the United States, encouraging challenges hybrid work and providing administrative space with a limited footprint. Can someone of the speakers please comment on workplace design and space utilization in the context of healthcare workspace?
Well, it's what we've just been saying. There's a design process, there's certain stakeholders, there's specific requirements. Go on, Kay. Faye. Okay.
I think we all agree that there is a process. Okay, nobody's challenging that. But the solutions have to be unique for different sectors.
Absolutely.
Okay? And in the healthcare sector, one of the biggest challenges that you have is the health and the well-being of the nursing staff and the doctors, right? And so we really have to think about maximum efficiency, right? So quite frankly, one of the major differences is in office spaces, I actually encourage people to move, and sometimes I put things farther away from each other to force people to move and to integrate and to go to different places and to commingle. In healthcare scenarios, it's about maximizing the efficiency and limiting the number of steps that they have to take, and maximizing, not only just for the patient care, but for the nursing and the health and well-being. So they're the canary in the coal mine, to pick up with what you were saying before, on absolutely needing to maximize that efficiency and absolutely needing to prioritize health and well-being because it is so 100% critical. And so in those places, that part of the process is different and or accelerated. We really need to spend more time on creating really high-functioning spaces. The other thing is from the patient care, does anybody like going to the doctor or hospital? No, right? Like, we need to do a much better job in creating a better experience.
So in the UK, in the end, I did it again. I was brought in to evaluate some space in the NHS, and I went into the space, and what they wanted to do is give all the staff 1 metre desks, and in a room of 30 square metres, they had 10 of them. And I asked, what are these people doing? And they said, oh, they're on the call to patients, and then when they come off the phone, they then write up the notes. And I was like, that was a classic case of, build it cheap, squeeze them in, no thought whatsoever about the implications for their performance, their well-being, their health, or anything.
And I will insist, if the space is reduced, because this is the question, we need to provide the best space possible instead of making people work in a basement.
Exactly, yeah.
So access to the natural light, better acoustic isolation, better softness, much more reduce the density, and really create a chill space for them.
Right, so, thank you, Mule. So do you remember my question? Right, there's people in the room, they've got a project coming up. It might be a refurbishment, new project. What's the 160 character piece of advice that you would give those people? What's the one essential thing they need to do?
Change is about people. So you need to understand where they're coming from, what's going on for them, externally and internally, so that you can build your plans that are going to be suitable for them.
Thank you. Okay.
Know your client and know their specific requirements and needs, and get rid of benchmarking, stop trying to make everybody the same. I think what we didn't answer in that question was the hybrid. There's a whole lot of people that don't have the option to work in a hybrid manner because they have to go to a place every single day.
Good point.
Manufacturing, healthcare workers, retail, traders, all of those individuals. And so we need to be making the workspace the best that we can for what they're actually doing.
That was 670 characters, but I'll let you off.
Yeah, my number one advice would be to think about the implicit changes that you're making and the structure, so that it can be the hierarchy, usually it is the hierarchy, but any other cultural norms and behaviors that you're changing. That is going to have a big effect on change management and resistance.
Invest in your culture. Set up a process which is not linear but parallel, holistically. Bring every stakeholder on the table at the beginning, not at the end. Quite often we come to workplace projects in the understanding of delivering furniture. And yeah. And think of typologies of solutions which are fit for more what you think right now, which kind of gives you an option to rethink spaces again.
Thank you.
I'll be less than 160. Think about the head, the heart, and the pocket.
Good one. Make a good brief. Engage everyone on board, including technology, space, culture, and management, and make it one strong idea to go through the project process.
Thank you, panel. I hope you agree they've been wonderful today. Please give them a big round of applause. We can relax. Oh, no, okay, but over to Alenka, though.